A lonely single father raising his daughter alone, a young woman running from a toxic past. It all started with one desperate dance at a lavish wedding where she whispered, "Dance with me, please." He didn't know that simple act of kindness would change both their lives forever. When her past comes back threatening everything, he must face his biggest fear. Should he open his heart to love again, or keep living in safe darkness? This is a story about redemption, family, and unexpected love. Stay until the end, hit like, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Daniel Brooks stood at the edge of the vineyard terrace, watching couples spin beneath strings of Edison bulbs that swayed in the evening breeze. The wedding was beautiful in that expensive, curated way. White roses climbing wooden arbors, servers gliding between guests with champagne flutes, a live band playing jazz standards that made everything feel like a scene from a movie someone else was living. He checked his watch. 8:30. Another hour, and he could leave without seeming rude. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else." Daniel turned. His colleague Marcus grinned at him, loosening his tie with one hand while balancing a plate of hors d'oeuvres in the other. "That obvious?" Daniel asked. "Only to anyone with eyes." Marcus popped a stuffed mushroom into his mouth. "Come on, man. When's the last time you actually went out? Had fun?" "I have fun." "Watching cartoons with a 6-year-old doesn't count." "She's 7 now, and those cartoons are surprisingly well written." Marcus laughed, but there was sympathy in it. "Look, I know it's been rough since Amanda left, but you can't just—" "I'm fine," Daniel said, the words coming out harder than he meant them to. "Really, I'm just not great at these things. These things being weddings, small talk, pretending I belong in a place where people pay $200 a plate." Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "You belong here same as anyone. Brad invited the whole department, remember? You're not crashing, you're networking." "I'm a data analyst. I network with spreadsheets." "Well, tonight you network with humans, doctor's orders." Marcus gestured toward the dance floor. "And maybe you ask someone to dance. Radical concept, I know." Daniel shook his head. "Not happening." "Your loss." Marcus grabbed another champagne flute from a passing server. "I'm going to find my wife before she spends our mortgage on the silent auction. Try to at least look like you're enjoying yourself." He disappeared into the crowd, leaving Daniel alone again with his thoughts and a glass of wine he wasn't drinking. The truth was, Marcus wasn't entirely wrong. It had been 3 years since Amanda walked out. 3 years of learning how to braid hair from YouTube videos, of parent-teacher conferences he attended alone, of bedtime stories and breakfast routines, and the constant gnawing awareness that he was doing all of it solo. Mia deserved better than a father who was just going through the motions, but most days going through the motions was all he had energy for. Dating felt impossible. Who had time? And even if he did, what would he say? "Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm 32, going on 50. My idea of a wild Friday night is making it through bath time without flooding the bathroom. And I haven't had a conversation with another adult that didn't involve quarterly reports in about 6 months. Yeah, real attractive." He was contemplating a quiet exit when he saw her. She stood near the dessert table, partially hidden behind a centerpiece of peonies and eucalyptus. Young, mid-20s maybe. Dark hair falling in waves past her shoulders, wearing a dress the color of deep emerald that somehow managed to look both elegant and effortless. She was beautiful, yes, but that wasn't what caught his attention. It was the way she was looking at someone across the room. The tension in her shoulders. The forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. Daniel followed her gaze and found the source. A man in an expensive suit, mid-30s, with the kind of confident posture that came from never being told no. He was talking to a group near the bar, but his attention kept drifting back to the woman by the dessert table. Watching her, tracking her. The woman noticed. Her hand trembled slightly as she set down her wine glass. Daniel looked away. Not his business. He didn't know these people. Didn't know their history. For all he knew, they were exes working through awkward post-breakup social situations like adults. But then the man started moving toward her, and the expression on her face shifted from uncomfortable to something closer to fear. Daniel's feet were moving before his brain caught up. He crossed the terrace in 8 steps, weaving between clusters of guests, and came to a stop beside her just as the man in the expensive suit arrived. "There you are," Daniel said, looking directly at the woman. I've been looking everywhere for you. She blinked at him, confusion flickering across her face. Up close, he could see the slight redness around her eyes, the way her jaw was clenched tight. The man in the suit stopped short. Excuse me? Daniel extended his hand to the woman, ignoring him. They're about to play our song. You promised me this dance, remember? For a long moment, she just stared at him. Daniel had no idea if she'd take the lifeline he was offering or tell him to get lost. He wouldn't blame her either way. He was a stranger inserting himself into a situation he didn't understand. Then her hand slid into his. Of course, she said softly. I'm sorry. I lost track of time. Her palm was cold, her fingers trembling. Daniel kept his expression neutral as he led her toward the dance floor, acutely aware of the man's eyes burning into his back. The band had just started a slower number, something instrumental and jazzy that Daniel didn't recognize. They reached the edge of the dance floor and he turned to face her, suddenly very aware that he had no plan beyond getting her away from that guy. I'm not actually a great dancer, he said. Fair warning. That makes two of us. Her voice was steadier now, though her hand still shook in his. But thank you for that. You didn't have to. Seemed like you needed an exit. I did. She glanced over his shoulder, checking if they were being followed. He's persistent. Ex-boyfriend. Something like that? She looked back at Daniel, really looked at him for the first time. I'm Chloe, by the way, since we're apparently dance partners now. Daniel. Nice to meet you, Daniel. A small, genuine smile touched her lips. Even if the circumstances are weird. Weird is my specialty. He placed his free hand carefully on her waist, respectful, proper, the way his mother had taught him at his cousin's quinceañera when he was 14. So do we actually dance or just stand here pretending? We should probably dance. Blake's still watching. Blake being the persistent ex. Daniel guided her into a simple box step, trying to remember the basics from a wedding dance lesson Amanda had dragged him to years ago. He wasn't smooth, but he wasn't stepping on her feet either, which felt like a minor victory. So how do you know the happy couple? Chloe asked. Work. Brad's in my department. You? Melissa and I went to college together, roommates sophomore year. She was starting to relax, the rigid tension in her shoulders easing slightly. I almost didn't come tonight. Should have trusted my instincts. Because of Blake? Because I knew he'd be here. Melissa warned me, but I thought I could handle it. Thought enough time had passed that it wouldn't matter. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Turns out 6 months isn't enough. Daniel didn't know what to say to that, so he just kept dancing, giving her space to talk or not talk as she needed. The song shifted into something slower. Around them, other couples drew closer together. Daniel maintained the respectful distance, but Chloe surprised him by stepping in, closing the gap. Is this okay? She asked quietly. Yeah, of course. They swayed in silence for a moment. This close, he could smell her perfume, something light and floral with an undertone of vanilla. Could see the faint freckles scattered across her nose, mostly hidden under makeup. Can I ask you something? Chloe said. Sure. Why did you help me? You don't know me. For all you know, I'm the problem and Blake's the victim. Daniel considered that. You're not, though. I can tell. How? The way you looked at him. People don't look scared of someone who's the victim. Chloe was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. He wasn't always like that. Blake, I mean. When we first started dating, he was different, charming, attentive. It happened so gradually I didn't notice. The way he'd criticize what I wore, who I spent time with, how he always had to know where I was. By the time I realized what was happening, I was so tangled up in it, I didn't know how to get out. But you did get out. Barely. And he's been trying to pull me back ever since. She lifted her head, meeting Daniel's eyes. Tonight was supposed to be proof that I'm fine, that I've moved on. But the second I saw him, I just froze. That's not weakness, Daniel said. That's just being human. You sound like my therapist. Your therapist is probably right. That got a real smile from her. Small, but genuine. The band transitioned into another song, but neither of them moved to leave the dance floor. So, what about you? Chloe asked. What's your story, Daniel the rescuer? I'm not. He stopped himself. I'm really not that interesting. Single dad, work in data analytics, spend most of my time making sure my daughter doesn't eat glue or convince herself she can fly. How old? 7. Her name's Mia. That's a beautiful name. She's a beautiful kid, smart as hell, which is terrifying because she's already figured out how to manipulate me into extra dessert. Chloe laughed, and the sound was like light breaking through clouds. Where's her mom? Not in the picture, left when Mia was 4. Daniel kept his voice even, factual. He'd learned how to talk about Amanda without emotion, like discussing weather patterns. Decided motherhood wasn't for her after all. I'm sorry. Don't be. We're better off. He meant it, mostly. There were hard days, sure, but the hard days without Amanda were still easier than the hard days with her had been. It's just me and Mia now. We make it work. Sounds like you're doing more than making it work. Some days. Other days I'm microwaving chicken nuggets for the 3rd time in a week and calling it dinner. That still counts. You're showing up. That's what matters. They'd been dancing for 3 songs now, Daniel realized. Long enough that people might actually believe they came together. Long enough that he'd almost forgotten this was supposed to be fake. I should probably let you get back to your evening, Chloe said, but she didn't move to leave. I'm sure you have better things to do than babysit a stranger with ex-boyfriend drama. Honestly, this is the most interesting conversation I've had in months. Your bar must be pretty low. You'd be surprised how boring quarterly fiscal reports are. She smiled again, and Daniel felt something shift in his chest, something he hadn't felt in a long time and wasn't entirely sure he wanted to feel now. The song ended. The band announced they'd be taking a short break. Around them, couples drifted toward tables or the bar. Chloe stepped back, creating distance between them. Thank you, really. I know I keep saying that, but I mean it. You didn't have to do what you did. Anyone would have. No. She shook her head. They wouldn't. Most people pretend not to notice. It's easier that way. Daniel wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. He'd seen it himself countless times. The way people looked away from uncomfortable situations, convinced themselves it wasn't their problem. Well, he said, I'm glad I could help. Me too. Chloe hesitated, like she was working up the courage to say something else. Then, would you want to get some air? The terrace is beautiful, and it's getting crowded in here. Every logical part of Daniel's brain said this was a bad idea. He didn't know this woman, didn't know what he was getting into. He had to relieve the babysitter by 11, had work in the morning, had a whole life of responsibilities that didn't include getting tangled up in someone else's complicated situation. Sure, he heard himself say. That sounds nice. They walked to the far end of the terrace, away from the main crowd. The vineyard stretched out below them, rows of vines disappearing into darkness. The air was cooler here, carrying the scent of grapes and earth. Chloe leaned against the railing, tilting her head back to look at the stars. It's beautiful out here. Yeah. Daniel stood beside her, maintaining a careful foot of distance. You don't see stars like this in the city. Is that where you live? The city? Suburbs, technically. About 20 minutes out, quieter, better schools. He paused. What about you? I just moved back to the area, actually. I was in Portland for a while, but after the breakup, I needed a fresh start. My parents are here, and I thought... She trailed off. I don't know what I thought. That coming home would fix things, maybe. Did it? Ask me in 6 months. She turned to look at him. Though tonight's not a great data point. Tonight you had to deal with an ex you weren't expecting. That's not the same as normal life. What's normal life like for you? Daniel thought about it. Morning chaos. Mia refusing to wear anything that isn't purple. Arguing about whether fruit snacks count as fruit. Drop off at school, work, pickup, homework battles, dinner, bath, bedtime stories, and then about 2 hours of silence before I pass out and do it all again. That sounds exhausting. It is, but it's also, he searched for the right word. Good. Simple. I know what's expected of me. There's no ambiguity. No room for anything else either. It wasn't a question, and Daniel didn't answer it like one. No, not really. They stood in comfortable silence for a while. Daniel became aware of how close they were standing, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her, close enough that if he shifted his weight slightly, their shoulders would touch. "Can I tell you something?" Chloe said suddenly. "Of course." "This is the first time in months I've felt like myself. Not the person Blake wanted me to be, not the person trying to prove she's okay, just me." She looked at him, and there was something vulnerable in her expression. "I know that probably sounds stupid. It doesn't. We just met. You don't even know me." "Sometimes it's easier with strangers," Daniel said. "No history, no expectations. You can just be whoever you are in that moment." "Is that what this is for you? Easy?" The question hung in the air between them. Daniel knew the safe answer, the sensible answer, but standing here with this woman he'd known for less than an hour, under stars that seemed impossibly bright, the safe answer felt like a lie. "No," he said quietly. "This isn't easy at all." Chloe's breath caught. "Why not?" "Because I haven't felt like this in a long time, and I don't know what to do with it." "Felt like what?" Daniel turned to face her fully. "Like maybe there's something outside the routine, something that isn't responsibilities and obligations and just getting through the day." "Daniel, I know, this is crazy. We just met. You're dealing with your own stuff, and I'm a single dad who can barely keep his own life together, let alone—" He stopped himself, shaking his head. "Sorry, I'm making this weird." "You're not." Chloe reached out, her fingers brushing against his. "I feel it too. Whatever this is."
He said more citizen is.
They stood there, hands almost but not quite touching, the space between them electric with possibility and fear and something neither of them could name. Then a voice cut through the moment. "Chloe!" They both turned. Blake stood 10 feet away, his expression unreadable in the dim light. He'd loosened his tie, and there was something slightly unsteady in his posture that suggested he'd had more than a few drinks. "We need to talk," he said. "No, we don't." Chloe's voice was firm, but Daniel could feel her trembling. "I've said everything I need to say." "You're really going to do this? Make a scene at Melissa's wedding?" "I'm not making a scene, you are." Blake's eyes shifted to Daniel. "And who's this? Your new boyfriend? Moving on pretty fast, aren't you?" "That's none of your business," Chloe said. "None of my business?" Blake laughed, sharp and bitter. "We were together for 3 years, Chloe. You don't just throw that away because you had some moment of—" "You threw it away," Chloe interrupted. "When you made me afraid to check my own phone. When you told me I was crazy for being upset that you showed up at my work. When you—" Her voice broke. "When you made me feel like I was the problem for wanting basic respect." "That's not how it was." "That's exactly how it was." Daniel watched the exchange, every muscle in his body tense. He didn't know the full story, didn't know all the details of what had happened between them, but he knew enough. He'd seen enough. Blake took a step forward. Chloe instinctively stepped back. Daniel moved between them. "I think you should leave," he said quietly. Blake's expression hardened. "I don't remember asking your opinion." "I'm not giving an opinion. I'm telling you what's going to happen. You're going to turn around, walk back inside, and leave Chloe alone for the rest of the night." "Or what?" "Or I'll find the groom and explain why one of his guests is harassing another guest. And trust me, from what I know about Brad, he's not going to be happy about someone causing problems at his wedding." For a long moment, Blake didn't move. Daniel could see him calculating, weighing his options. Then something shifted in his expression, a flash of anger that was there and gone so quickly, Daniel almost missed it. "This isn't over," Blake said, looking past Daniel to Chloe. "Yes," Chloe said. "It is." Blake stared at her for another moment, then turned and walked back toward the main party. Daniel watched until he disappeared into the crowd, then turned to Chloe. She was shaking, her arms wrapped around herself. "Hey," Daniel said softly. "You okay?" "I'm fine. She pressed her hands to her face. "God, I'm sorry. You shouldn't have had to deal with that." "Don't apologize. That wasn't your fault." "I should have just left when I first saw him. I knew this would happen. I always know, and I never—" She took a shaky breath. "I'm such an idiot." "You're not an idiot. You're someone trying to live your life while dealing with someone who won't let you. That's not the same thing. Chloe looked up at him, and there were tears in her eyes now. Why are you being so nice to me? Because someone should be. The simplicity of it seemed to undo something in her. She made a small, broken sound, and then she was crying, really crying. And Daniel did the only thing he could think of. He pulled her into his arms. She buried her face against his shoulder, her whole body shaking with sobs she'd probably been holding back all night. Daniel held her, one hand between her shoulder blades, the other resting lightly on the back of her head. He didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. After a while, the tears slowed. Chloe pulled back, wiping at her eyes. I'm sorry, she said. I'm getting mascara all over your shirt. It'll wash out, she laughed wetly. You must think I'm a complete disaster. I think you're someone who's been through something hard and is still standing. That's not disaster. That's strength. Chloe studied his face for a long moment. How are you real? I'm not sure I am. I'm pretty sure I'm actually home right now, passed out on the couch while Mia watches cartoons. That got another small laugh. If this is a dream, it's a weird one. The good ones usually are. She smiled, really smiled, and Daniel felt that shift in his chest again. Stronger this time, more insistent. I should probably go, Chloe said, before Blake decides to come back. Do you want me to walk you to your car? Would you mind? I don't mind. They made their way through the vineyard, following the path lit by solar lights shaped like fireflies. Chloe's car was parked in the overflow lot, a small blue sedan that had seen better days. She unlocked it, but didn't get in right away. Instead, she turned to face Daniel. Thank you, she said, for everything tonight. The dancing, the talking, all of it. I know I keep saying thank you, but I don't know what else to say. You don't have to say anything. I want to, though. She hesitated. Can I give you my number? I know that's forward, and I totally understand if you're not interested, but I'd like to talk to you again, if that's okay. Daniel knew he should say no, knew that getting involved with someone who was clearly still processing a traumatic relationship was a terrible idea, knew that he had enough complications in his life without adding this particular brand of chaos. Yeah, he said. I'd like that too. They exchanged numbers, fingers fumbling with phones in the darkness. When Chloe finally got into her car, she looked up at him through the open window. Drive safe, Daniel said. You too. She started the engine, then paused. Daniel? Yeah? I'm really glad you asked me to dance tonight. Me too. He watched her taillights disappear down the long driveway, then walked back to his own car. The wedding was still going strong. He could hear music and laughter drifting across the vineyard, but he was done for the night. The drive home was 45 minutes of highway and back roads, time Daniel usually spent replaying work meetings or planning the next day's schedule. Tonight, all he could think about was the way Chloe had looked at him, the weight of her hand in his, the sound of her laugh. He made it home by 10:30. Mrs. Chen, his neighbor who babysat, was asleep on the couch. Daniel woke her gently, paid her the usual rate plus extra for staying late, and locked up after she left. Mia's room was dark except for the nightlight shaped like a crescent moon. Daniel stood in the doorway, watching his daughter sleep. She was sprawled across the bed in that boneless way kids slept, one arm flung over Mr. Whiskers, the stuffed cat that had been her constant companion since she was 2. She looked so peaceful, so safe. Daniel thought about Chloe, about the fear in her eyes when Blake approached, about the way she trembled in his arms, about all the ways the world could hurt someone. He would do anything to protect Mia from that, anything to make sure she grew up knowing she deserved respect, safety, love without conditions or control. But he also wanted her to see what healthy love looked like, what it meant to connect with someone who saw you, really saw you, and valued what they found. He didn't know if Chloe could be that, didn't know if he was ready to try, but for the first time in 3 years, he wanted to find out. Daniel pulled Mia's door closed and headed to his own room. His phone buzzed as he was changing for bed. A text from an unknown number. Made it home safe. Thank you again for tonight. Chloe. He stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. Glad to hear it. Sleep well. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, you too. And Daniel? I meant what I said. I'm really glad we met. Me too, he wrote back. Me too. He set his phone on the nightstand and lay in the darkness, listening to the house settle around him. Tomorrow he'd go back to the routine, breakfast chaos, work, pickup, the familiar pattern of days that all blended together. But tonight had been different. Tonight had been possibility. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Daniel let himself hope that maybe, just maybe, there could be more. Monday morning hit Daniel like it always did, with Mia jumping on his bed at 6:15, already fully dressed in an outfit that absolutely did not match. "Daddy, I'm ready for school." Daniel cracked one eye open. Purple striped leggings, an orange t-shirt with a dinosaur on it, and her sparkly pink sneakers that lit up when she walked. She looked like a traffic accident, but she was beaming with pride. "That's quite a look, kiddo. I picked it myself. I can tell." He sat up, running a hand through his hair. "Did you brush your teeth?" "Yep." "Did you actually use toothpaste this time, or just wet the brush?" Mia's face fell slightly. "I forgot the toothpaste part." "Go do it again, for real this time." She trudged off, and Daniel hauled himself out of bed. His phone was on the nightstand where he'd left it, and he told himself he wasn't checking to see if Chloe had texted again. He was just checking the time, that's all. There was a message from her, sent around 11 the night before. "Can't sleep. Keep thinking about that dance. Is that weird?" Daniel had been asleep when she sent it. Now he stared at the words, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. What was the right response? Something casual? Something honest? He settled for, "Not weird." "I've been thinking about it too." He hit send before he could second guess it, then immediately regretted it. Too much? Not enough? He was 32 years old and felt like a teenager trying to figure out how texting worked. The bathroom faucet was running. Mia was singing something about sharks while she brushed, which meant she was actually doing it this time. Daniel made it downstairs and started the coffee maker, then pulled out cereal bowls. Breakfast was the same every weekday. Cheerios for Mia, black coffee, and whatever was fastest for him. Today, it was a protein bar that tasted like cardboard and optimism. Mia appeared in the kitchen, mouth noticeably minty fresh. "Better," Daniel said. "Can I have the marshmallow cereal?" "We don't have marshmallow cereal." "We should get marshmallow cereal." "Noted." He poured Cheerios into her bowl, added milk. "Eat fast. We've got 15 minutes before we need to leave." "I'm always fast." She was not fast. She was possibly the slowest eater in human history, treating each Cheerio like it required individual consideration before consumption. Daniel's phone buzzed. Chloe had responded, "Good to know I'm not alone in that. How's your Monday shaping up?" He typed back while watching Mia arrange cereal into what appeared to be a face. "The usual chaos." "You?" 3 dots appeared immediately. "First day at my new job. Terrified." "You'll be great," Daniel wrote. "What kind of work?" "Youth counselor. Middle school." Daniel paused. He hadn't asked what Chloe did for work at the wedding. Hadn't asked much about her life at all, really. They'd talked about Blake, about Daniel's situation with Mia, but the practical details had gotten lost somewhere between dancing and crying and the way she'd looked at him in the parking lot. "That's amazing," he wrote. "Takes a special kind of person to work with that age group. Or a crazy person. Jury's still out." Daniel smiled. "Let me know how it goes?" "Will do. Good luck with your Monday, too." He pocketed his phone and focused on getting Mia fed, backpack packed, and into the car with minimal drama. They made it to Riverside Elementary with 3 minutes to spare. A personal record. "Have a good day, monkey," Daniel said as Mia unbuckled herself. "You too, Daddy." She leaned over and kissed his cheek, then grabbed her backpack. "Love you." "Love you too." He watched her run toward the entrance, her light-up shoes flashing with every step. Mrs. Patterson, her second-grade teacher, waved from the door. Daniel waved back, waited until Mia was safely inside, then pulled out of the parking lot. Work was the usual grind. Spreadsheets, meetings, more spreadsheets. Marcus stopped by his desk around 10 with coffee and unsolicited commentary. "You disappeared Saturday night," Marcus said, setting a cup down in front of Daniel. "One minute you were sulking by the terrace, next minute you were gone." "I wasn't sulking, and I told you I was leaving early." "Did you at least have a good time before you bailed?" Daniel thought about Chloe's hand in his, the way she'd felt in his arms. Yeah, actually, I did. Marcus raised his eyebrows. Really? Do tell. There's nothing to tell. That's the worst lie you've ever told, and you once tried to convince me you enjoyed that team-building trust fall exercise. But I met someone. We talked. That's it. You talked. Marcus looked delighted. At a wedding, while presumably drinking free alcohol. And all you did was talk? We danced too. Oh, this keeps getting better. What's her name? Chloe. And? And nothing. We exchanged numbers, that's all. Marcus studied him for a long moment. You like her? I barely know her. That's not what I asked. Daniel took a sip of coffee to avoid answering. It was terrible coffee. The office stuff always was, but it gave him something to do with his hands. Look, Marcus said, his tone shifting to something more serious. I know you've been burned. I know Amanda did a number on you, but you can't just shut down forever, man. At some point, you have to take a chance. I have Mia to think about. Mia would probably love to see you happy. I am happy. You're content. That's different. Marcus stood, picking up his own coffee cup. Just think about it, okay? Life's too short to play it safe all the time. He left before Daniel could formulate a response. Daniel turned back to his computer, but the spreadsheet in front of him might as well have been written in ancient Greek for all the sense it made. His phone buzzed. Chloe. Survived the first day. Kids are terrifying, but also kind of great. Daniel. That sounds about right. How terrifying are we talking? Chloe. One of them asked me if I was pregnant. I'm not. Another told me my shoes were mid. I don't know what that means, but I don't think it's good. Daniel laughed out loud, earning a curious look from Janet in the next cubicle. Daniel. Mid means mediocre. You're learning the language already. Chloe. Great, my shoes are mediocre. Exactly what I needed to hear on day one. Daniel. For what it's worth, I thought they looked nice on Saturday. There was a longer pause before her response came through. Chloe. You noticed my shoes? Daniel. I noticed a lot of things. He hit send and immediately wanted to take it back. Too forward. Too much. He was about to type a follow-up to walk it back when her response appeared. Chloe. Good. So did I. Daniel stared at the message, feeling something warm unfold in his chest. Then another message came through. Chloe. Want to grab coffee sometime? I promise not to have a breakdown in the parking lot this time. Daniel's finger hovered over the keyboard. This was the moment. The decision point. He could say yes and see where this went, or he could make an excuse and keep his life exactly as it was. Safe, predictable, uncomplicated. He thought about what Marcus said, about Mia and what example he was setting, about the fact that he was 32 and the last time he'd felt anything close to this kind of connection was before Amanda, before everything fell apart. Daniel. Coffee sounds good. When? They made plans for Wednesday evening. Daniel would drop Mia at his mother's house. She'd been asking for more grandma time anyway, and meet Chloe at a cafe near the park. Nothing fancy, just coffee and conversation. It felt both momentous and terrifying. Tuesday dragged. Wednesday morning came too fast. Daniel changed his shirt 3 times before taking Mia to school, which earned him a strange look from his daughter. Why are you being weird? Mia asked from the back seat. I'm not being weird. You're being weird. You keep looking at your phone and smiling. I'm allowed to smile. Not that much. It's suspicious. Daniel caught her eye in the rearview mirror. When had she gotten so observant? I'm meeting a friend for coffee tonight, he said. That's all. What friend? A new friend. Her name is Chloe. Mia processed this information. Is she your girlfriend? No, we just met. But you want her to be your girlfriend. That's... Daniel stopped. There was no point lying to Mia. She had a built-in lie detector that was frankly unsettling. I don't know yet, maybe. We'll see. Okay. Mia went back to looking out the window. Then, after a moment, is she nice? Very nice. Does she like dinosaurs? I don't know. I'll ask. If she doesn't like dinosaurs, you shouldn't date her. That's a red flag. Daniel wasn't sure where Mia had learned the term red flag, but he made a mental note to monitor her YouTube consumption more carefully. I'll keep that in mind, he said. Work was impossible to focus on. Daniel kept checking his phone even though he and Chloe had already confirmed the time and place. At 3 o'clock, she sent him a message. Still on for tonight? Daniel. Absolutely. Chloe. Good. I've been nervous all day. Daniel. Me too. Chloe. That makes me feel better. See you at 6. Daniel picked Mia up from school and drove straight to his mother's house. Linda Brooks answered the door in her gardening apron, soil under her fingernails. There's my girl. She scooped Mia into a hug. We're making cookies tonight, chocolate chip. With the big chocolate chips? Mia asked. Is there any other kind? Mia squealed and ran inside. Linda turned to Daniel with a knowing look. You're dressed nice, she said. It's just jeans and a shirt, Mom. A shirt that's actually ironed, and you're wearing cologne. I am not. Daniel stopped. He absolutely was wearing cologne. Just a little. Fine. I'm meeting someone for coffee. Someone? A woman. Her name's Chloe. We met at a wedding. Linda's face lit up. Daniel, that's wonderful. It's just coffee. Don't make it a thing. I'm not making it a thing. I'm just happy you're putting yourself out there. She reached up and smoothed his collar, even though it didn't need smoothing. You deserve this, honey. You know that, right? I know you think that. I know that. There's a difference. She kissed his cheek. Now go. Have fun. Don't rush back. Mia can sleep here if you're out late. It's coffee, Mom. I'll be back by 9. Sure you will. She was already closing the door, a smile on her face that made Daniel simultaneously grateful and embarrassed. The cafe was called Common Grounds, which Daniel thought was trying a little too hard to be clever. But it had good reviews and outdoor seating, which seemed like a safe middle ground, public enough to not be weird, intimate enough to actually talk. He arrived 10 minutes early and immediately regretted it. Should he get a table, wait outside, order something? He was still debating when he saw Chloe walking up the sidewalk. She'd dressed down from the wedding, jeans, a simple blue sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger somehow, more relaxed. And when she saw him, her whole face brightened. Hi, she said, slightly breathless, like she'd been walking fast. Hi. They stood there for a second, neither quite sure what to do. Hug? Handshake? Nothing? Chloe solved it by gesturing to the door. Should we... Yeah, right. Inside, the cafe was busy but not packed. They ordered black coffee for Daniel, some complicated latte thing for Chloe, and found a table by the window. For a moment, they just sat there, both holding their drinks like lifelines. So, Chloe said. So. This is weird, right? I'm not imagining that this is weird. It's definitely weird, Daniel agreed. We kind of did everything backwards. Usually you get coffee first, then dance at a wedding while helping someone escape their ex. Right? We skipped like 5 steps. She took a sip of her latte, leaving a small foam mustache that she quickly wiped away. But good weird, I think. Good weird, Daniel confirmed. Some of the tension eased. They fell into conversation more naturally after that. Chloe telling him about her first week at work, the kids who were already testing boundaries, the teacher who'd given her a 20-minute lecture on the importance of documentation. I'm documenting everything, Chloe said. Every conversation, every concern. It's exhausting, but also kind of necessary. These kids, some of them are going through things that would break most adults. Like what? I can't get specific confidentiality, but let's just say I've already made 3 calls to social services, and it's only been 4 days. Daniel watched her face as she talked. There was passion there, and anger at the injustice of it all, but also genuine care. She wasn't doing this for a paycheck. She was doing it because she believed it mattered. What made you want to work with kids? He asked. Chloe was quiet for a moment. When I was 14, I had a counselor who probably saved my life. Ms. Chen. My parents were going through a messy divorce, and I was just drowning. Ms. Chen was the first adult who actually listened, didn't try to fix everything or tell me how to feel, just listened. She met Daniel's eyes. I want to be that person for someone else, even if it's just one kid, even if it's just once. That's pretty incredible. It's also terrifying. What if I screw it up? What if I'm the adult who makes it worse? You won't. How do you know? Because you're already worried about it. People who screw things up don't spend time worrying whether they're screwing things up. Chloe smiled. Is that your parenting philosophy? Pretty much. That and keeping the kid fed and relatively clean. How's that working out? Mia's still alive and hasn't been expelled from second grade yet, so I'm calling it a win. They talked about Mia for a while, her dinosaur obsession, her ability to negotiate like a seasoned lawyer, the way she'd recently decided she wanted to be a paleontologist astronaut, veterinarian when she grew up. She sounds amazing, Chloe said. She is. Exhausting, but amazing. Daniel hesitated, then asked the question that had been nagging at him. Does it bother you that I have a kid? Why would it bother me? Some people find it complicated, the whole package deal thing. Daniel, I work with kids all day. If I couldn't handle being around a 7-year-old, I'd be in the wrong profession. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. Besides, the fact that you're a good dad, that's not a negative. That's actually one of the things I like about you. One of the things? Don't let it go to your head. But she was smiling, and her hand was still touching his, and Daniel felt like maybe Marcus had been right. Maybe this was worth the risk. They stayed at the cafe until it closed, talking through 2 more rounds of drinks and a shared piece of carrot cake that Chloe insisted was necessary for the full experience. By the time they walked outside, the sun had set and the street lamps were flickering on. I should probably get going, Chloe said, but she didn't move toward her car. Yeah, me too. Daniel didn't move either. They stood in the parking lot, the space between them charged with the same electricity as Saturday night on the terrace. Chloe looked up at him, and Daniel thought about kissing her, thought about closing the distance and seeing what happened. But it was too soon, too fast, and there was still too much he didn't know about her situation with Blake, about whether she was really ready for something new. So instead he said, Can I see you again? I'd like that. Saturday? I could probably get my mom to watch Mia again. Saturday's perfect. She pulled out her phone. Actually, wait, what time do you usually pick up Mia from school? 3:15. Why? Chloe's expression shifted to something sheepish. Because I need to tell you something, and I'm worried it's going to sound weird or stalkerish, and I promise it's not. Okay? I work at Riverside Elementary, that's my new job. Middle school counselor, but the district placed me at Riverside because they needed coverage there too. Daniel processed this. You work at Mia's school. I work at Mia's school. I found out yesterday when I was reviewing my schedule and saw the elementary program. I almost texted you, but then I thought maybe I should tell you in person. And now I'm telling you, and it sounds exactly as weird as I thought it would. It's not weird. It's a little weird. Okay, it's a little weird, Daniel admitted. But not bad weird, just coincidental weird. I haven't met her yet. Mia, I mean. But if you're not comfortable with me working there, I can request a transfer. It might take a few weeks, but Chloe, Daniel waited until she looked at him. I'm not uncomfortable. If anything, I'm glad. Riverside's a good school. The kids there are lucky to have you. She let out a breath. You're sure? I'm sure. Okay, good. She smiled, tentative. So I'll probably see you around pickup time then. Probably. And we're still on for Saturday? Definitely. This time when they said goodbye, Chloe did hug him. It was brief, friendly, but Daniel could feel the promise in it, the suggestion of more. He drove to his mother's house in a daze. Mia was already asleep on the couch, chocolate smudged on her cheek. Linda helped him carry her to the car. Good coffee date? She asked. Really good. When are you seeing her again? Saturday. And apparently every weekday at 3:15 when I pick up Mia. Linda raised an eyebrow. She works at the school. Just found out tonight. Well, Linda buckled Mia into her car seat with practiced efficiency. That's certainly convenient. That's one word for it. I think it's nice. Kismet, even. You and your kismet. Mock all you want. I've been married to your father for 40 years. I know kismet when I see it. Daniel kissed his mother's cheek and drove home. Mia barely stirred when he carried her inside and tucked her into bed. He stood in her doorway for a moment, watching her sleep, thinking about how much his life had changed in less than a week. Thursday was the first time Daniel saw Chloe at school. He was early for pickup, parked in his usual spot, scrolling through emails. When he glanced up, she was walking across the playground with a group of kids, middle schoolers probably, heading back from lunch. She hadn't seen him yet. He watched her interact with the students, the easy way she laughed at something one of them said, how she placed a gentle hand on another kid's shoulder when they looked upset. Then she looked up and caught his eye across the parking lot. Her whole face lit up. Daniel waved. She waved back, then got pulled back into conversation with the kids. But she kept glancing over, and every time she did, she was smiling. When Mia came out, she was talking animatedly to another girl about something dinosaur-related. She spotted Daniel and ran over, the other girl following. "Daddy, this is Sophie. She likes dinosaurs too." "Hi, Sophie," Daniel said. "Hi, Mr. Brooks." Sophie had braces and pigtails and spoke at about twice the speed of normal human conversation. "Mia said you might take us to the Natural History Museum sometime. They have a T-Rex skeleton." Daniel looked at his daughter, who gave him her most innocent smile. "Did she now?" "Please, Daddy, please, please, please." "We'll see." "That means yes," Mia informed Sophie. "Actually, it means we'll see." But both girls were already celebrating like it was a done deal. Sophie's mother appeared to collect her, and Daniel got Mia buckled in. As they were pulling out, he saw Chloe again. She'd finished with the middle schoolers and was heading back inside. On impulse, Daniel rolled down his window. "Chloe!" She turned, walking over to his car. "Hey, good pickup?" "The usual chaos. Apparently I'm taking Mia and her entire second grade class to see dinosaurs now." "Sounds fun." "Sounds expensive." He paused. "You could come, if you want. Make it educational instead of just me letting kids run wild through exhibits." Chloe's smile widened. "Are you asking me on a dinosaur date? Is that weird?" "Little bit, but I'm starting to think weird is our thing." "So is that a yes?" "That's a yes." She glanced at the car behind him, which was waiting to pull through. "I should let you go. Text me about museum details?" "Will do." She stepped back and Daniel drove off. In the rearview mirror, he could see Mia watching him with undisguised interest. "Is that Chloe?" she asked. "Yes." "Your coffee friend?" "Yes." "She's pretty." "Yes, she is." "And she's coming to see dinosaurs with us?" "Looks that way." Mia considered this. "Does she know that T-Rexes had feathers?" "I have no idea." "Someone should tell her. It's important." "I'm sure you'll handle that." Friday afternoon, Daniel's phone buzzed during a meeting. He ignored it until the meeting ended, then checked his messages. It was from an unknown number. "This is Blake. We need to talk about Chloe." Daniel stared at the message. How the hell did Blake get his number? Another message came through. "She's not who you think she is. I'm trying to help you out here, man to man." Daniel deleted both messages without responding. Then he texted Chloe. "Did you give Blake my number?" Her response was immediate. "What? No, why?" Daniel. "He just texted me, twice." There was a longer pause, then, "Oh God, I'm so sorry. He must have gone through my phone. I'll handle this." Daniel. "You don't have to apologize. Not your fault." Chloe. "Still, this is exactly the kind of thing he does. I should have warned you." Daniel. "It's fine. I blocked him." Chloe. "Thank you. And I'm sorry. Really. He wanted to call her to make sure she was okay, but he was still at work and there were people around. Instead, he sent, 'Are you okay?' Chloe. "Yeah, just frustrated. I thought I was done dealing with this." Daniel. "Want to talk about it tomorrow? Before the museum?" Chloe. "Maybe. Can I let you know?" Daniel. "Of course." That night, after Mia was in bed, Daniel found himself researching warning signs of abusive relationships. He'd read articles before when Amanda first left and he was trying to understand what had gone wrong. But this was different. This was about Chloe, about understanding what she'd been through. The patterns were there. Isolation from friends and family, constant monitoring, emotional manipulation disguised as care. And the aftermath too, the way victims often struggled to trust again, the hypervigilance, the difficulty setting boundaries. Daniel didn't know all the details of Chloe's relationship with Blake, but he knew enough to recognize that she was still navigating the wreckage of it, still learning how to feel safe again. Saturday morning, Daniel got Mia dressed and ready for the museum trip. She'd insisted on wearing her dinosaur t-shirt, which had a stegosaurus on it that she'd colored in with markers last month. "Do I look okay?" she asked, spinning in a circle. "You look perfect." "What about you? Do you look okay?" Daniel glanced at himself in the hallway mirror. Jeans, a button-down shirt, sneakers. Normal dad attire. "I think so. Why?" "Because Chloe's going to be there and you want her to think you're handsome." "Where are you getting this stuff?" "Grandma told me that when you like someone, you want them to think you're handsome." Remind me to have a talk with Grandma about appropriate topics of conversation with 7-year-olds. They picked up Sophie, who was equally enthusiastic about dinosaurs, and drove to the museum. Chloe was waiting by the entrance, wearing jeans and a green jacket, her hair down. Mia bounded up to her before Daniel could say hello. "Hi, I'm Mia. Did you know that T-Rexes probably had feathers?" Chloe crouched down to Mia's level. "I did not know that. That's amazing. Are you a dinosaur expert?" "Kind of. I'm learning. This is Sophie. She's also learning." "Hi, Sophie." "Hi, Miss Bennett." Chloe blinked. "Wait, Sophie, you're in my social skills group at school." "Yeah, you're really nice." Chloe stood, meeting Daniel's eyes with an expression that said, "This is the weirdest small world coincidence I've ever experienced." Daniel just smiled. "Kismet," he said. "What's Kismet?" Mia asked. "Something Grandma believes in. Come on, let's go see some dinosaurs before they close." They spent 3 hours in the museum. Mia and Sophie dragged them from exhibit to exhibit, offering commentary that was half facts and half wild speculation. Chloe asked questions and seemed genuinely interested in the answers. She took pictures of the girls posing with various fossils. She didn't talk down to them or act bored. And somewhere between the Jurassic period and the gift shop, watching Chloe help Mia pick out a plastic triceratops, Daniel realized he was in trouble. This wasn't just attraction anymore. This was something deeper, something that felt like it could matter. And that scared him more than anything Blake could text. After dropping Sophie back at her house, Daniel drove home with Mia chattering nonstop in the back seat about pterodactyls and whether they were technically dinosaurs or not. Chloe had promised to text him later, and he'd watched her walk to her car with the kind of stupid smile that made him glad Mia couldn't see his face from where she was sitting. "I like Chloe," Mia announced as they pulled into their driveway. "Yeah? What do you like about her?" "She listens, like really listens. Not the kind of listening where grown-ups are just waiting for you to stop talking." Daniel cut the engine and turned to look at his daughter. "That's pretty observant, kiddo." "I'm 7 now. I observe things." She unbuckled herself. "Also, she didn't try to hold your hand even though I could tell she wanted to." "Mia, I'm just saying, if you want to hold her hand, that's okay with me. I won't be weird about it." "Good to know I have your permission." "You're welcome." She climbed out of the car, clutching her new plastic triceratops. "Can we have pizza for dinner?" "We had pizza Tuesday." "So?" "Pizza doesn't have a schedule." Daniel couldn't argue with that logic. He ordered pizza, and they spent the evening watching a documentary about paleontology that Mia had insisted on. Halfway through, she fell asleep on the couch, her triceratops still gripped in one hand. Daniel carried her to bed, careful not to wake her. As he was pulling her blanket up, his phone vibrated in his pocket. He stepped into the hallway before checking it. "Chloe, thank you for today. I had the best time." Daniel, "Me too. Mia's already asking when you can come over again." Chloe, "Really?" Daniel, "She said you're a good listener. High praise from a 7-year-old. Chloe, "That might be the nicest thing anyone said to me in months." Daniel hesitated, then typed, "Can I call you?" The phone rang 15 seconds later. "Hi," Chloe said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. "Hi." Daniel walked downstairs away from Mia's room. "Is this okay? Calling instead of texting?" "It's better than okay. I was hoping you would." He settled onto the couch, the same spot where Mia had been sleeping moments ago. "I wanted to check in about Blake, the text yesterday." Chloe's sigh came through clearly. "I'm sorry about that. I should have known he'd pull something like this." "You don't have to apologize. I just want to make sure you're all right. I'm fine, frustrated mostly. I changed my phone password after you told me, and I blocked him on everything I could think of. But he's persistent. That's always been his thing. How long were you together? 3 years? Met him my senior year of college. He was charming at first, really charming. Everyone loved him. She paused. That was part of the problem, actually. When things started getting bad, nobody believed me. They'd say I was being dramatic, that Blake was such a great guy, that every relationship has rough patches. That must have been isolating. It was. By the time I finally left, I'd lost most of my friends. They thought I was the problem. Her voice got quieter. Sometimes I still wonder if they were right. They weren't. You sound pretty sure about that. I am sure. I saw how you looked at him at the wedding, Chloe. That wasn't someone leaving a good guy. That was someone who was scared. She was quiet for a moment. Yeah, I was. Still am, sometimes. He knows how to get under my skin, make me doubt myself. The texts, the showing up places I go, the constant reminders that he's still there. It's like he wants me to know I'll never really be free of him. Daniel's jaw tightened. Has he threatened you? Not directly. He's too smart for that. It's all just concerned ex-boyfriend stuff on the surface, wanting to make sure I'm okay, saying he's worried about my choices, but the subtext is always the same. He's watching, and he's not going away. Have you thought about getting a restraining order? I looked into it, but unless he makes a direct threat or shows a pattern of harassment that I can document, it's hard to get one approved. And honestly, she laughed, but it was bitter. I'm tired of my life revolving around him. I just want to move on. That's fair. Is it, though? Sometimes I feel like I should be doing more, being stronger, fighting back harder. You left him, Daniel said. That took strength. Everything else is just figuring out how to live after. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I just know what it's like to have to rebuild. They talked for another hour, the conversation drifting from Blake to easier topics. Chloe's favorite exhibits at the museum, Mia's insistence that velociraptors were misunderstood, the way Sophie had tried to convince the gift shop employee that she should get a discount because she'd memorized all the dinosaur names in the Cretaceous section. Those two are going to be trouble together, Chloe said. They already are. I got a note from Mrs. Patterson last week about them talking during quiet reading time. About dinosaurs? What else? Apparently they were debating whether the Brachiosaurus could have beaten a T-Rex in a fight. Well, that's an important debate. That's what I told Mrs. Patterson. She was not amused. Chloe's laugh was warm and genuine, and Daniel realized he could listen to that sound for a very long time without getting tired of it. When they finally hung up, it was nearly midnight. Daniel sat in the dark living room for a while, turning the conversation over in his mind. The more he learned about Chloe, the more he wanted to know. And the more he knew, the deeper he fell into whatever this was becoming. The next week settled into a rhythm. Daniel would drop Mia at school and catch glimpses of Chloe across the playground. Sometimes they'd wave. Once she walked over to his car to say good morning, and Mia had spent the entire drive home asking questions about whether they were boyfriend-girlfriend yet. We're friends, Daniel kept saying. Friends who like each other. Yes, Mia. Friends who like each other. That's called boyfriend-girlfriend, Daddy. It's called taking things slow. That's boring. Maybe it was boring. But Daniel had spent 3 years doing everything at breakneck speed with Amanda, falling hard, moving in together, getting married, having a baby, all within the span of 20 months. And when it ended, the crash had been spectacular. He wasn't doing that again. Not to himself, and definitely not to Mia. Wednesday afternoon, Daniel was in a meeting when his phone buzzed repeatedly. He ignored it until the third buzz, then glanced down. 3 texts from Chloe. Chloe. Are you still at work? Chloe. Sorry, I know you're probably busy. Chloe. Can you call me when you get a chance? It's not urgent, but I could use a friendly voice. Daniel excused himself from the meeting. It was mostly Marcus talking about efficiency metrics anyway, and stepped into the hallway. Chloe picked up on the first ring. Hey, she said. Thanks for calling back. What's going on? Are you okay? I'm fine, She let out a shaky breath. Blake showed up at the school today. Daniel's blood went cold. What? He was waiting in the parking lot after dismissal, said he wanted to talk, that we needed to clear the air. I told him to leave, but he just stood there by his car watching me. Did you call the police? No, he didn't do anything technically illegal, just stood there. But Daniel, he knew which days I work late, knew exactly when I'd be walking to my car alone. Her voice cracked slightly. I'm so tired of being scared. Where are you now? Still at school. I'm in my office. I didn't want to walk to the parking lot by myself. Daniel was already grabbing his jacket. Stay there. I'm coming to get you. You don't have to. I'm already leaving. 20 minutes. He made it in 15, breaking at least 3 traffic laws on the way. Riverside Elementary was mostly empty by the time he arrived. Just a few teachers' cars scattered across the lot. Blake's car, a black Mercedes that probably cost more than Daniel made in a year, was gone. Daniel texted Chloe that he was there, and she appeared a minute later, locking the building behind her. She looked exhausted, the kind of bone-deep tired that came from constant vigilance. Thank you for coming, she said. Of course. He looked around the parking lot. Is your car here? Yeah, but I'm scared to go near it. What if he did something to it? Slash the tires or worse? Let's check together. They walked to her car, the same blue sedan from the wedding night. Everything looked normal. No damage, no notes left on the windshield. Daniel checked underneath while Chloe stood watch, feeling slightly ridiculous but unable to shake the sense that Blake was the kind of person who would absolutely sabotage someone's car. It looks fine, he said, standing up and brushing dirt off his hands. Okay, good. Chloe wrapped her arms around herself. I'm being paranoid, aren't I? You're being cautious. There's a difference. I hate this. I hate that he still has this power over me. It's been 6 months. I should be over it by now. Trauma doesn't work on a timeline, Chloe. She looked at him, eyes shining with unshed tears. How do you know exactly the right thing to say? I don't. I'm mostly just guessing and hoping it helps. That got a small smile from her. It does help, more than you know. Daniel wanted to hug her, to offer some kind of physical comfort, but he wasn't sure if that was what she needed right now. Instead, he said, follow me to my place. We'll pick up Mia from my mom's, order dinner, and you can just breathe for a while. No pressure, just somewhere safe. Chloe nodded. That sounds really good, actually. They drove in a small convoy back to Daniel's house. Once inside, Chloe seemed to relax slightly, her shoulders losing some of their tension as she looked around the lived-in chaos of Daniel's home, shoes by the door, Mia's drawings on the fridge, a pile of folded laundry on the chair that had been sitting there for 3 days. Sorry about the mess, Daniel said. Are you kidding? This is the most normal house I've been in months. Blake's place always looked like a showroom. You couldn't sit on the furniture without worrying about disturbing the aesthetic. She picked up one of Mia's drawings, a purple dinosaur eating what might have been a pizza. This is perfect. I'll let Mia know you appreciate her interior decorating. Please do. Daniel called his mother to let her know he'd be late picking up Mia, which earned him a knowing that he chose to ignore. Then he ordered Chinese food and put on coffee because it was 4:30 in the afternoon and therefore acceptable coffee hour. Chloe sat at the kitchen table, wrapping her hands around the mug he gave her. Can I ask you something? Always. Why are you doing this? Being so nice to me. You barely know me, and I keep dragging you into my drama. Daniel sat down across from her. You're not dragging me anywhere. I'm choosing to be here. But why? He thought about how to answer that. The truth was complicated, part attraction, part recognition of someone who was struggling, part the simple fact that being around her made him feel more alive than he had in years. Because when I look at you, he said slowly, I see someone who's brave enough to start over, who walked away from something toxic even though it was hard, who shows up for kids every day even when you're dealing with your own stuff. He met her eyes. That's not someone I want to walk away from. Chloe's breath hitched. Daniel, you don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know. She stood up, walked around the table, and before Daniel could process what was happening, she was kissing him. It was soft and tentative and tasted like coffee. Her hands were on his shoulders. His were hovering uncertainly near her waist, and for a moment everything else fell away. Blake, Amanda, all the complications and fears and reasons this might be a terrible idea. When she pulled back, they were both breathing hard. Sorry, Chloe said. I probably should have asked first. I'm not complaining. Good. She smiled, really smiled, and Daniel saw what she must have looked like before Blake, before fear became her default setting. Because I've been wanting to do that since the wedding. Me too. They were still standing there, close enough that Daniel could count the freckles on her nose, when the doorbell rang. The food had arrived. They ate straight from the containers sitting on the floor of the living room because Mia had turned the kitchen table into a dinosaur excavation site that Daniel hadn't had the heart to dismantle yet. It felt easy and natural, the kind of comfortable that usually took months to develop. I should probably go soon, Chloe said eventually. Pick up Mia before your mom thinks we're doing something scandalous. We kind of are doing something scandalous. Eating Chinese food on the floor is scandalous? For me it is. My life is very boring. I'm starting to doubt that. She stood, brushing rice off her jeans. But seriously, I should go. I have early meetings tomorrow. Daniel walked her to the door. They stood on the porch, the evening air cool and sharp with the first hint of autumn. Thank you, Chloe said, for today, for everything. Stop thanking me. I can't help it. You keep doing things worth thanking you for. Daniel reached out and took her hand. You can call me anytime. If Blake shows up again, if you're scared, if you just need to talk. Day or night. I mean that. I know you do. That's one of the things She stopped herself. One of the things I really appreciate about you. She'd been about to say something else. Daniel was sure of it. But the moment passed, and she squeezed his hand once before letting go. He watched her drive away, then went to pick up Mia. His mother opened the door with a look that said she knew exactly what had been happening. Did you have a nice evening? Linda asked innocently. Very nice. Is Chloe well? She's fine, Mom. Good. I'm glad she has someone looking out for her. Linda handed over Mia's backpack. Your daughter ate half a batch of cookies and is probably going to be up until midnight. Thanks for the warning. Mia appeared behind her grandmother, chocolate on her face. Daddy! Grandma showed me how to make snickerdoodles. I see that. Can Chloe come over for dinner sometime? Like a real dinner, not just museum food? Daniel glanced at his mother, who was trying very hard not to smile. Maybe. We'll see. That means yes, Mia told Linda. That means we'll see, Daniel corrected. But Mia was already skipping to the car, singing a song about cookies and dinosaurs, and Linda was giving Daniel a look that communicated approximately 17 different thoughts, all of them some variation of I told you so. The next few days were good, better than good. Daniel and Chloe texted constantly, falling into a rhythm of good morning messages and late-night conversations. They saw each other at school pickup, and twice more for coffee after work. The kiss on Daniel's porch remained unmentioned but not forgotten. It hung between them like a promise of something more. Friday afternoon, Daniel was reviewing expense reports when Marcus appeared at his desk. You're different, Marcus announced. Hello to you too. I'm serious. You're smiling at your phone. You actually laughed at Johnson's terrible joke in the meeting this morning. What happened? I'm just in a good mood. This is about the wedding girl, isn't it, Chloe? Daniel closed his laptop. Maybe. I knew it. You're dating her. We're seeing each other. It's still new. But it's good? Yeah, Daniel admitted. It's really good. Marcus grinned. Good for you, man. It's about time. That evening, Daniel picked up Mia and was surprised to see Chloe waiting by his car. She looked upset. Not scared exactly, but shaken. Can we talk? She asked. Of course. Mia, honey, can you wait in the car for a minute? Is everything okay? Mia asked, looking between them. Everything's fine, sweetie. I just need to talk to Chloe. Mia climbed into the back seat, pressing her face against the window to watch them. Daniel led Chloe a few steps away. What happened? Blake called the school. Her hands were shaking. He told them he was concerned about my emotional stability, that I'd been acting erratically, asked if there had been any complaints about my work. What did they say? My principal called me in to discuss it. She was professional about it, said she wasn't worried and that my work has been excellent, but she had to document the call. Blake knows that. He's trying to mess with my job. That's harassment. It's Blake being Blake, making sure I know he can still affect my life. She pressed her fingers to her temples. I don't know what to do. If I report him, it escalates things. If I don't, he just keeps pushing. Daniel thought for a moment. What if you document everything? Every time he shows up, every call, every text, build a paper trail. Eventually it might be enough for a restraining order. That could take months. I know, but it's something. He reached out and gently took her hands. And you're not doing this alone. I'm here. Whatever you need. Chloe looked up at him, and something in her expression shifted. Can I ask you something crazy? Define crazy. Come to my parents' house for dinner this weekend. Meet them. I know it's fast, but they've been asking about you, and I think showing them that I'm okay, that I'm building something new, might help me feel less like Blake is winning. Daniel's heart started beating faster. Meeting the parents was a big step. The kind of step that said this was serious, that they were heading somewhere real. Okay, he said. Okay? Yeah. When? Sunday? 6 o'clock? We'll be there. We? Daniel gestured toward the car where Mia was still pressed against the window. She's part of the package deal, remember? Chloe smiled for the first time since he'd arrived. I wouldn't have it any other way. Sunday came too fast. Daniel spent an hour trying to figure out what 7-year-olds wore to meet their maybe-girlfriend's parents before giving up and letting Mia choose her own outfit. She picked a purple dress with dinosaur leggings, which seemed about right. Are Chloe's parents nice? Mia asked in the car. I don't know. I've never met them. What if they don't like us? Then we'll be very polite for 2 hours and leave. What if they do like us? Then I guess we'll come back sometime. Mia processed this. Are you nervous? Little bit. Me too. But Chloe's nice, so her parents are probably nice too. Daniel wished he had his daughter's faith in the transitive property of niceness. Chloe's parents lived in a modest craftsman-style house in an older neighborhood. The lawn was meticulously maintained, and there were flower boxes under every window. Chloe answered the door before they could knock. You came, she said, and there was relief in her voice. Of course we came. She crouched down to Mia's level. You look beautiful. I love your dinosaurs. Thanks. Daddy said I could pick my own outfit. Daddy made a good call. Inside, the house smelled like roasting chicken and fresh bread. Chloe's mother appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. She was petite, with graying hair and the same warm eyes as her daughter. You must be Daniel, she said, extending her hand. I'm Helen, and this must be Mia. Nice to meet you, Daniel said. Hi, Mia said shyly, suddenly less confident than she'd been in the car. Chloe's father emerged from what looked like a study, tall, quiet, with the cautious expression of a man who'd watched his daughter go through hell and wasn't quite ready to trust anyone new. Robert, he said, shaking Daniel's hand with a grip just firm enough to make a point. Dinner was surprisingly easy. Helen was a natural host, keeping conversation flowing and making sure Mia felt included. Robert warmed up gradually, especially when Mia started asking him about the telescope she'd spotted in his study. You like astronomy? Robert asked. I like anything about space. Daddy says maybe we can go to the planetarium next month. The planetarium is wonderful. Did you know they just got a new exhibit about Mars? Mia's eyes went wide, and she was off, peppering Robert with questions about rovers and whether humans would ever live on other planets. Daniel caught Chloe's eye across the table, and she was smiling in a way that made his chest ache. After dinner, while Mia and Robert looked at his telescope on the back porch, Helen pulled Daniel aside. Can I speak with you for a moment? Of course. They stepped into the kitchen, where Helen poured 2 cups of coffee without asking if Daniel wanted any. Chloe told us about you, Helen said, about how you met and what you did at that wedding. Let me finish. Helen's voice was kind but firm. My daughter has been through something awful. Blake hurt her in ways that I don't think she's fully processed yet. And I'll be honest with you, when she first mentioned you, I was worried. Worried she was jumping into something new too fast, trying to fix one problem by creating another. Daniel nodded, unsure what to say. But watching you tonight, watching you with Mia, seeing how gentle you are with Chloe, I think I was wrong. Helen met his eyes. I think you might be exactly what she needs. Someone steady, someone kind, someone who shows up. I care about her, Daniel said quietly. I can see that. And she cares about you. More than she's admitted, I think. Helen took a sip of coffee. Just please be patient with her. She's still healing. I'm not going anywhere. Good, Helen smiled, because my daughter deserves someone who stays. They rejoined the others on the back porch, where Mia was looking through the telescope at the moon while Robert pointed out craters. Chloe stood next to Daniel, close enough that their shoulders touched. This is nice, she said softly. Yeah, it is. Thank you for coming, for including Mia, for everything. Daniel took her hand right there in front of her parents and squeezed gently. Stop thanking me. Never. They stayed for another hour, and when they finally left, Mia was carrying a book about constellations that Robert had insisted she borrow. In the car, she chattered about everything she'd learned, already making Daniel promise they'd get their own telescope. Did you have a good time? Daniel asked when she finally paused for breath. The best. Chloe's family is really nice. She was quiet for a moment. Daddy? Yeah, monkey. I think Chloe makes you happy. She does. Good. You should be happy. Mia yawned, already starting to doze off. And I like her too, just so you know. I know, kiddo. I know. That night, after Mia was asleep, Daniel's phone rang. It was Chloe. My parents loved you, she said without preamble. I liked them too. My dad never warms up to people that fast, and Mia charmed him completely. She has that effect on people. She's a lot like you. Chloe paused. Daniel, I need to tell you something. His stomach dropped. Okay, I'm falling for you. I know it's fast and probably stupid given everything I'm dealing with, but it's true. You and Mia, being around you makes me remember what it feels like to be happy. And I just thought you should know. Daniel let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. I'm falling for you too. Yeah? Yeah. Have been since you asked me to dance. Chloe laughed, and it sounded like relief. We're kind of a mess, aren't we? Probably, but maybe that's okay. Maybe it is. They talked until almost midnight, about nothing and everything. And when Daniel finally hung up and lay in the darkness of his bedroom, he let himself hope that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something that would last. The following Tuesday started like any other. Daniel dropped Mia at school, exchanged a smile with Chloe across the parking lot, and drove to work with coffee that was already lukewarm. He was halfway through reviewing a budget projection when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Daniel Brooks? The voice was male, smooth, confident. Who's asking? Blake Morrison. I think we need to talk. Daniel's hand tightened around the phone. I have nothing to say to you. That's a shame because I have plenty to say about you. About your relationship with my girlfriend. Chloe's not your girlfriend. That's where you're wrong. Blake's tone was pleasant, conversational, which somehow made it worse. See, Chloe and I have history. 3 years of it. You? You're just some rebound guy who happened to be in the right place at the right time. Is there a point to this call? The point is that you're making a mistake. Chloe's fragile right now. Unstable. She needs professional help, not some single dad playing hero because he's lonely. Daniel stood up, walking to the window of his office. You don't know anything about me. I know you've got a kid, Mia, right? 7 years old, second grade at Riverside Elementary. Cute kid. Shame she's getting dragged into this mess. Every muscle in Daniel's body went rigid. Don't talk about my daughter. I'm just stating facts. You're involving your child in a volatile situation. What happens when Chloe has one of her episodes? When she breaks down in front of your little girl? You really want to expose Mia to that? This conversation is over. Think about what I said, Daniel. You seem like a good father. Good fathers protect their children. They don't put them in harm's way just because they're thinking with the wrong part of their... Daniel hung up. His hand was shaking. He stood there for a long moment, staring at his phone. Then he called Chloe. Hey, she answered. What's up? Blake just called me. Silence. Then, what did he say? A lot of things. Most of them designed to make me question us. Daniel took a breath. He mentioned Mia, knew her name, her grade, where she goes to school. Oh my God. Chloe's voice went thin. Daniel, I'm so sorry. I didn't think he'd... This isn't your fault, but we need to talk about this, really talk. I know. Can you come over tonight after Mia's asleep? Yeah, I'll ask my mom to stay with her. When Daniel told Linda what was happening, she didn't hesitate. Of course I'll watch Mia. You go talk to Chloe. And Daniel? She put a hand on his arm. Be careful. Not with Chloe, with yourself. Don't let this Blake person make decisions for you out of fear. Daniel drove to Chloe's apartment that night with his mother's words echoing in his head. The building was a converted warehouse in the arts district, all exposed brick and high ceilings. Chloe buzzed him up, and he found her pacing her living room when he arrived. I've been going over everything in my head, she said without greeting, trying to figure out how he knows about Mia. I never told him about you, about meeting someone new, but he must have been following me, watching. Chloe, and now he's dragging your daughter into this, and I can't... Her voice broke. I can't be the reason something happens to her. I can't be that person. Daniel crossed the room and took her shoulders gently. Hey, look at me. Nothing is going to happen to Mia. You don't know that. I do know that. Because Blake's not stupid enough to actually do anything. This is what he does, right? He manipulates, makes threats without making threats. But that only works if we let it scare us into backing down. Chloe pulled away, wrapping her arms around herself. Maybe he's right, though. Maybe I am too unstable for this. For you and Mia. You've built this good life, and I'm bringing chaos into it. You're not chaos, Chloe. You're someone dealing with a difficult situation. That's not the same thing. Isn't it? She turned to face him, and there were tears on her cheeks. Be honest with me, Daniel. Are you having second thoughts? Because if you are, I'd rather know now. Daniel thought about it, really thought about it. Blake's call had rattled him. There was no denying that. The mention of Mia had triggered every protective instinct he had, and part of him, the part that had been burned before, that had watched his marriage collapse, wanted to run, to choose the safe option, to protect what he had, rather than risk it for something uncertain. But the larger part of him, the part that had been coming alive again over the past few weeks, knew that walking away would be the real mistake. No, he said firmly. I'm not having second thoughts. But he brought up Mia, and I'm not going to let him use my daughter to control my decisions. That's exactly what he wants. Daniel stepped closer. I'm scared, Chloe. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't, but I'm not scared of you. I'm scared of losing what we're building here. Chloe closed her eyes. I don't want you to choose between me and keeping Mia safe. I'm not. I can do both. He waited until she looked at him. But I need you to trust me, and I need to know that you're going to stop blaming yourself for Blake's behavior. Can you do that? I can try. That's all I'm asking. She moved into his arms then, and Daniel held her while she cried. When the tears finally stopped, they sat on her couch and talked through options. Daniel suggested they both document everything, every call, every encounter, every instance of Blake showing up where he shouldn't be. Chloe agreed, though her voice was hollow when she did. I hate that this is my life, she said quietly, that I have to build evidence files and look over my shoulder and worry about who might be watching. I know, but it won't always be like this. How can you be sure? Because you're stronger than he is, and you're not alone anymore. Chloe rested her head on his shoulder. I keep waiting for you to realize I'm not worth all this trouble. Stop waiting. It's not going to happen. They stayed like that for a while, finding comfort in the simple fact of being together. Eventually, Daniel had to leave. It was nearly 11, and he needed to relieve his mother. But as he was walking to the door, Chloe caught his hand. Daniel? Yeah? Thank you for not running. Thank you for giving me a reason to stay. He kissed her forehead, then left before he could change his mind about leaving at all. The next few days were tense. Daniel found himself checking the rearview mirror more often, making sure no one was following them. He talked to Mia's principal about adding extra security protocols for pickup, and while he didn't explain all the details, he made it clear that only he or his mother should be allowed to take Mia from school. Mrs. Patterson, Mia's teacher, pulled him aside on Thursday. Is everything all right? She asked. I noticed the new pickup procedures. Just being cautious. There's someone who's been concerning. I wanted to make sure Mia's protected. Of course, we'll keep an extra eye out. She hesitated. Mia mentioned you have a girlfriend now. Is this related? Indirectly, it's her ex who's the problem. Mrs. Patterson nodded knowingly. Mia seems happy, for what it's worth. Happier than I've seen her all year. She talks about Chloe constantly. Miss Bennett this, Miss Bennett that. That made Daniel smile despite everything. Yeah, they've hit it off. That's good. Kids know. They can tell when the adults in their lives are genuine. Friday afternoon, Daniel was leaving work when Marcus stopped him in the parking lot. You look like hell, Marcus said bluntly. Thanks. Always appreciate your honesty. What's going on? And don't say nothing because I've known you long enough to know when you're stressed. Daniel considered brushing him off, then decided against it. He gave Marcus the abbreviated version, meeting Chloe, the situation with Blake, the escalating harassment. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker. That's stalking, he said when Daniel finished. You know that, right? What he's doing is illegal. I know, but proving it is harder than you'd think. Have you talked to a lawyer? Not yet. Chloe's been hesitant to escalate things. Escalate things? Daniel, this guy is threatening your kid. That ship has sailed. Marcus pulled out his phone. My cousin's a family law attorney. I'm texting you her number. Call her. Today. Marcus, I'm serious. You're my friend. And I'm not going to watch you and Mia get pulled into something dangerous because you're trying to be patient with this Blake asshole. Daniel took the number. Thanks. Don't thank me. Just call her. He did, that evening after putting Mia to bed. The lawyer, Jennifer Marcus, was professional and direct. She asked questions, took notes, and gave Daniel the reality check he probably needed. Based on what you've told me, you have grounds for a harassment claim, Jennifer said. The phone calls, the showing up at the school, the implied threats, it's a pattern. But it's going to require both you and Ms. Bennett to be willing to pursue it legally. What would that look like? Filing for a restraining order, documenting every interaction, possibly involving law enforcement if he violates the order. It's not a quick process, and it can get messy. But if you're serious about protecting your daughter and your relationship with Ms. Bennett, it's something to consider. Daniel rubbed his eyes. Let me talk to Chloe. Do that. And Mr. Brooks? Don't wait too long. These situations tend to escalate before they get better. That night, Daniel called Chloe and explained what the lawyer had said. There was a long silence on the other end. A restraining order, Chloe finally said. That feels so official. It is official. That's kind of the point. But what if it makes things worse? What if Blake, what if he what? Keeps doing exactly what he's already doing. Chloe, this isn't going to stop on its own. He's not going to wake up one day and decide to leave you alone. I know that, I do. It's just... She let out a frustrated breath. Once we file, there's no going back. It becomes this whole legal thing, and everyone will know, and I'll be that woman who couldn't handle her ex-boyfriend without getting the courts involved. Or you'll be the woman who stood up for herself and set boundaries. There's no shame in that. You really believe that? I do. Another silence, then, okay, let's do it. Yeah? Yeah, I'm tired of being scared. And you're right, he's not going to stop unless we make him. They spent the weekend gathering documentation. Chloe had kept more records than she'd realized. Screenshots of texts, dates, and times of when Blake had shown up at places, notes from the call he'd made to her school. Daniel added his own documentation of Blake's phone call, and together they had enough for a solid case. Monday morning, they met with Jennifer Marcus in her office downtown. She reviewed everything methodically, asking clarifying questions and making notes in a legal pad that seemed too small for the amount she was writing. This is good, Jennifer said finally. Very thorough. I can file a petition for a protection order today. There will be a hearing, probably within 2 weeks. Blake will be served notice and have the opportunity to contest it. Will he contest it? Chloe asked. Hard to say. Some people fight these out of principle. Others back off once they realize there are legal consequences. Either way, the temporary order will be in effect as soon as it's served, which means he'll have to stay away from you. No contact, no showing up at your work or home. What about Daniel and Mia? I can include them in the protection order as associated parties. It'll cover all three of you. Daniel felt some of the tension in his chest ease. How soon can this happen? I'll file today. Service will probably happen tomorrow or Wednesday. Then we wait for the hearing. They left the office with a sense of having done something concrete, something that mattered. Chloe was quiet on the drive back to her apartment, staring out the window. You okay? Daniel asked. I don't know. I feel like I should be relieved, but mostly I just feel tired. That's normal. Is it? Nothing about this feels normal. Daniel pulled into a parking spot outside her building and turned off the engine. Can I tell you something? Always. When Amanda left, I spent months wondering what I'd done wrong, what I could have done differently. It took me a long time to realize that some people are just broken in ways you can't fix. Blake is broken, Chloe, and that's not your fault, and it's not your job to manage. Chloe turned to look at him. How did you get past it? The wondering? I focused on Mia, on building a life that made sense without Amanda in it, and eventually it stopped hurting so much. He reached over and took her hand. You're going to get there too. Maybe not today or next week, but you will. I hope you're right. I am, and I'll be here to remind you on the days when you forget. She leaned across the console and kissed him, soft and grateful and full of something that felt like trust. Blake was served with the protection order on Wednesday. Daniel knew because his phone exploded with messages that afternoon. 23 texts in the span of 10 minutes, each one angrier than the last. He didn't read past the first 3 before blocking the number and forwarding everything to Jennifer Marcus. Chloe's phone got hit even harder. She showed Daniel when he came over that evening. 57 messages, most of them accusing her of overreacting, of destroying his reputation, of being vindictive and cruel. He's spiraling, Daniel said, scrolling through them. Should I be scared? You should be careful. This is all going to Jennifer, and it's all evidence that he's violating the temporary order. Every message he sends just makes our case stronger. It doesn't feel stronger. It feels like I poked a bear. You set a boundary. Bears don't like boundaries. Chloe laughed despite herself. That's a terrible metaphor. I'm a data analyst, not a poet. The hearing was scheduled for the following Thursday. Jennifer prepared them for what to expect, the questions they'd be asked, how Blake's lawyer might try to discredit Chloe's account, the importance of staying calm and factual. He's going to try to paint you as unstable, Jennifer warned Chloe. That's the standard playbook. Don't engage, just answer the questions honestly and let the evidence speak for itself. The night before the hearing, Daniel couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through worst-case scenarios. What if the judge didn't see Blake as a threat? What if they dismissed the order? What if this made everything worse? His phone buzzed around midnight. Chloe. Are you awake? Yeah, can't sleep. Me either. I keep thinking about tomorrow. It's going to be okay. You sound more confident than I feel. That's because I have to be. One of us needs to believe this will work. What if it doesn't? Daniel rolled onto his side, phone pressed to his ear. Then we figure out plan B. But Chloe, we're not going backward. Whatever happens tomorrow, we're moving forward. Together. Together, she repeated like she was testing the word. I like the sound of that. Me too. They talked until almost 2 a.m. about nothing and everything. About Mia's upcoming science fair project. About the new coffee shop that opened near Chloe's apartment. About anything except the hearing. And when they finally hung up, Daniel felt calm enough to sleep. The courthouse was exactly as depressing as Daniel expected. Fluorescent lights, worn linoleum, the faint smell of industrial cleaner. He met Chloe and Jennifer outside courtroom 3B, and together they went through security and found seats on the hard wooden benches. Blake arrived with his lawyer 15 minutes before the hearing was scheduled to start. He looked polished and confident in a tailored suit, his expression one of wounded confusion rather than anger. It was a performance, Daniel realized. Blake was playing the role of concerned ex-boyfriend who couldn't understand why his attempts to help were being misconstrued. The lawyer with him was a woman in her 50s, sharply dressed and carrying herself with the kind of authority that came from years of courtroom experience. Daniel felt his stomach drop. Blake had come prepared. Chloe's hand found his under the bench, her grip tight and cold. It's going to be okay, Daniel whispered. She nodded, but didn't look convinced. The bailiff called them in. The judge was a middle-aged man with graying hair and the tired expression of someone who'd seen too many of these cases. He reviewed the petition briefly, then looked up. Ms. Bennett, you're requesting a permanent protection order against Mr. Morrison. Can you explain the basis for this request? Jennifer stood. Your Honor, my client has documented a pattern of harassment and stalking behavior spanning the past 6 months. Mr. Morrison has repeatedly contacted Ms. Bennett despite her request that he stop, has appeared at her workplace and home uninvited, and has made implied threats against both her and individuals associated with her. Blake's lawyer stood. Your Honor, Ms. Bennett and Mr. Morrison were in a committed relationship for 3 years. My client has been attempting to maintain contact out of genuine concern for Ms. Bennett's well-being. There's been no violence, no direct threats, and no criminal behavior. Let's hear from Ms. Bennett, the judge said. Chloe took the stand. Her voice was shaky at first, but as she walked through the timeline, the escalating control during their relationship, the difficulty of leaving, the constant contact after the breakup, she grew stronger. She talked about Blake showing up at her school, the call to her principal, the texts to Daniel. She was honest about her fear, about how Blake's behavior had affected her ability to feel safe. Blake's lawyer cross-examined her, trying to poke holes in her account. Wasn't it true that she'd responded to some of his messages? Wasn't it possible she was misinterpreting his concern as harassment? Hadn't she in fact approached him at the wedding where they'd encountered each other? I was trying to avoid him, Chloe said firmly. He cornered me. That's when Mr. Brooks intervened. Mr. Brooks being your current romantic interest? Yes. And isn't it possible that Mr. Morrison's attempts to contact you are being viewed through the lens of your new relationship? That you're seeing threats where there's only a man trying to process a difficult breakup? Chloe's jaw tightened. No. Blake's behavior started before I met Daniel. The pattern was already there. When it was Blake's turn, he was smooth and articulate. He talked about loving Chloe, about wanting to make sure she was okay after their breakup. He characterized his visits to her school and apartment as checking in rather than stalking. He admitted to being upset about the protection order, but insisted he'd never meant to frighten her. I just want her to be happy, he said, looking directly at Chloe. If she wants me out of her life, I'll respect that. I don't need a court order to do the right thing. It was a masterful performance. Daniel felt sick watching it. The judge reviewed the evidence, the text messages, the documented encounters, the call to the school. He asked Blake directly about the texts he'd sent to Daniel and Chloe after being served with the temporary order. I was upset, Blake admitted. I made a mistake. It won't happen again. Finally, after what felt like hours, the judge made his decision. I'm going to grant a 1-year protection order with the option to extend. Mr. Morrison, you are to have no contact with Ms. Bennett, Mr. Brooks, or Mr. Brooks's minor daughter. This includes in-person contact, phone calls, texts, emails, and social media. You are to stay at least 100 yards away from Ms. Bennett's residence, workplace, and any location where you know she'll be present. Violation of this order is a criminal offense. Do you understand? Blake nodded, his expression neutral. Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Bennett, if Mr. Morrison violates this order in any way, you contact law enforcement immediately. Understood? Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. They left the courtroom in a daze. Jennifer was pleased with the outcome, explaining that getting a year-long order on a first petition was actually quite good. But Chloe looked shell-shocked. Did we just win? She asked. We did, Daniel said. Then why do I feel like this isn't over? Because it probably wasn't, Daniel thought. But he didn't say that. Instead, he put his arm around her shoulders and walked her out of the courthouse into the afternoon sunlight. That evening, Daniel picked up Mia and brought her to Chloe's apartment for dinner. It was the first time all 3 of them had been together since the hearing, and Chloe had insisted on cooking, something about needing to do something normal with her hands. Mia helped set the table, chattering about her day at school. She was oblivious to the weight of what had happened, and Daniel was grateful for that. She made them both laugh with her impression of her gym teacher, and for a few hours, things felt almost normal. After dinner, while Mia was absorbed in a coloring book, Chloe pulled Daniel aside. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, she said quietly. For Blake to show up or find some loophole or make this worse somehow. He might try, but he's got a lot more to lose now. Violating a protection order has real consequences. I know. I just. She stopped, pressing her fingers to her temples. I don't know how to stop being afraid. Daniel pulled her into his arms. You don't have to stop being afraid. You just have to keep going anyway. Is that what you did? After Amanda? Yeah. Some days it worked better than others. Chloe pulled back to look at him. How did you know it was worth it? Pushing through even when it hurt? Because the alternative was worse. Giving up, staying stuck. That would have hurt Mia more than anything else. He touched her face gently. You're doing the brave thing, Chloe. Don't forget that. I don't feel very brave. Bravery isn't about not being scared. It's about being terrified and doing it anyway. She kissed him then, and it felt like a promise. A commitment to keep trying, to keep building, to keep choosing each other despite everything working against them. From the living room, Mia called out, Are you guys being gross? Because I can hear you. They broke apart, both laughing. We're not being gross, Daniel called back. That's what all gross people say. Chloe pressed her face against Daniel's chest, her shoulders shaking with laughter. I love your kid. She's pretty great. You're pretty great too. I have my moments. They went back to the living room where Mia had started a new coloring page, this one featuring a T-Rex wearing a party hat. Miss Bennett, do you think dinosaurs had birthdays? Mia asked. I'm sure they did, Chloe said, settling onto the floor beside her. What kind of cake do you think a T-Rex would want? A big one, with meat. That's disgusting. That's science. Daniel watched them together, this makeshift family they were building, and felt something settle in his chest. It wasn't peace, exactly. There was still too much uncertainty for that. But it was close. It was hope. And for now, that was enough. The weeks after the hearing passed in a strange kind of quiet. Blake stayed away, at least visibly. No calls, no texts, no surprise appearances at the school parking lot, but the silence felt heavy, like waiting for thunder after seeing lightning. Chloe checked her phone compulsively. Daniel found himself scanning crowds for Blake's face, and even Mia seemed to pick up on the tension, asking fewer questions than usual. Maybe he's actually respecting the order, Chloe said one evening. They were at Daniel's house, Mia asleep upstairs, and Chloe had been staring at her phone for the past 10 minutes. Maybe, Daniel said, though he didn't quite believe it. You don't sound convinced. I'm cautiously optimistic. There's a difference. Chloe set her phone down and curled into his side on the couch. I hate that I can't just relax, that every quiet day feels like I'm waiting for something bad to happen. That's what he wanted, to live in your head even when he's not physically there. Well, it's working. Daniel kissed the top of her head. Give it time. Eventually your brain will catch up with reality. Is that what happened for you, after Amanda? Eventually. Took longer than I wanted it to, but yeah. One day I realized I'd gone a whole week without thinking about her. Then 2 weeks, then a month. The space between gets bigger until you don't even notice it anymore. I want that, Chloe said quietly. I want to not notice. 3 weeks after the hearing, Marcus's wife Julia was getting married to her longtime girlfriend in a ceremony at the same vineyard where Daniel had first met Chloe. When the invitation arrived, Daniel had stared at it for a long time before showing it to Chloe. Do you want to go? He'd asked carefully. Chloe had looked at the card, at the ornate script, and the familiar venue name. That's where we met. I know. If it's too weird, no, I want to go. She'd met his eyes. I want to go back there as different people, people who aren't running from anything. Now standing in front of his bathroom mirror trying to get his tie straight, Daniel wondered if they were ready for that. Not just the wedding, but the statement it made. Going as a couple, publicly, to an event where people would ask questions and make assumptions about where this was heading. Mia appeared in the doorway, already dressed in the yellow sundress Linda had bought her specifically for the occasion. You're bad at ties, she observed. I'm aware. Want me to get Grandma? She's good at ties. I can do it myself. Uh-huh. Mia watched him struggle for another 30 seconds. Is Chloe going to be there? Yeah, we're picking her up on the way. Are you nervous? Daniel stopped fighting with his tie and looked at his daughter. Why would I be nervous? Because last time you went to a wedding, you met Chloe and everything got complicated. Maybe you're worried something else complicated will happen. When did you get so observant? I'm 7.5 now. I'm basically an adult. Right, my mistake. Daniel finally got the tie into something resembling a knot. You okay with Chloe coming with us? Why wouldn't I be? I don't know, just checking. Mia came into the bathroom and straightened his tie with the confidence of someone who'd watched her grandmother do it 100 times. I like Chloe. She's nice to you, and she listens when I talk about dinosaurs even when she probably doesn't care about dinosaurs that much. That's called being polite. No, it's called being a good person. There's a difference. Mia stepped back to examine her work. You look handsome now. Thanks, monkey. They picked up Chloe at her apartment. She was wearing a dress the same deep green as the one from that first night, her hair pulled back in a way that made her look older and more confident. When she got in the car, she squeezed Daniel's hand. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. The drive to the vineyard took 45 minutes, Mia filling the silence with a detailed explanation of her science fair project about volcanic eruptions. By the time they arrived, some of the tension had leaked out of the car, replaced by Mia's infectious enthusiasm. The vineyard looked almost exactly as Daniel remembered it. The same string lights, the same white roses climbing the arbors, the same sense of carefully constructed beauty. But this time, walking in with Chloe on one side and Mia on the other, it felt completely different. Marcus spotted them immediately and came over with a huge grin. You made it! And you brought the whole crew. He crouched down to Mia's level. You must be the famous Mia. Your dad talks about you constantly. He does? Oh yeah, dinosaurs, right? And science fairs? Mia beamed. Volcanoes. Excellent choice, very explosive. Marcus's husband Tom appeared with champagne for the adults and juice for Mia. They stood near the edge of the terrace making small talk, and Daniel found himself relaxing into the familiarity of it. This was good. Normal. The kind of thing regular couples did. You look happy, Marcus said quietly when Tom and Chloe had drifted into a conversation. I am happy. Good. You deserve it. Marcus paused. How's the Blake situation? Quiet, for now. That's good, right? Yeah, just waiting to see if it stays that way. The ceremony was beautiful and short, exactly the kind of thing Julia would have wanted. Two brides, both crying happy tears, surrounded by friends and family who were genuinely thrilled for them. Mia sat between Daniel and Chloe, surprisingly still and attentive. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Mia whispered loudly, Why would anyone object? They love each other. Several people nearby smiled. Chloe put her arm around Mia's shoulders and whispered something that made her giggle. Watching them together, Daniel felt something click into place. This was what he wanted. Not just Chloe, but this. The three of them as a unit, a family. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, it felt right. The reception was in full swing when Daniel's phone buzzed. He almost ignored it. Weddings weren't the place to check messages, but something made him look. It was from Jennifer Marcus. Blake violated the order. Police were called to Chloe's apartment building. He was arrested. Thought you should know. Daniel's blood went cold. He showed the message to Chloe, who read it twice before looking up at him with wide eyes. When? She asked. Daniel called Jennifer. She answered on the second ring and explained quickly. Blake had shown up at Chloe's building around 4 that afternoon, tried to get buzzed up, and when that didn't work, waited in the parking lot. A neighbor recognized him from Chloe's description and called the police. They'd arrested him for violating the protection order. What happens now? Daniel asked. He'll be arraigned, probably Monday. The DA will decide whether to press charges, but Daniel, this is good news. It proves he can't stay away, and it gives us documentation of a violation. Daniel thanked her and hung up. Chloe was gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles were white. He came to my apartment, she said, while you were here, while he knew you weren't there. So what was the point? Just to, what, make a statement? Maybe. Or maybe he's finally cracking. Chloe stood abruptly. I need some air. Daniel found Mia with Marcus's kids playing some elaborate game involving catching fireflies and asked Marcus to keep an eye on her. Then he went to find Chloe. She was at the far end of the vineyard, away from the lights and music, staring out at the dark rows of grapevines. Daniel approached slowly, giving her space. I thought getting the protection order would make me feel safe, she said without turning around. But I don't. I just feel like I'm waiting for the next thing. He was arrested, Chloe. That's not nothing. He'll get out. They always do. And then what? Another violation? Another arrest? How long does this go on? Daniel didn't have an answer for that. Instead, he moved closer and wrapped his arms around her from behind. She leaned back against him, and they stood there in the darkness listening to distant music and laughter. I'm tired, Chloe said finally. I'm so tired of being scared. I know. And I'm tired of him taking up space in my life. In our life. This should be a good night. We should be dancing and celebrating, and instead I'm out here spiraling because Blake can't let go. So let's go dance. She turned to look at him. What? Dance with me. Right here. Just us. Daniel pulled out his phone and found a song. Something slow and jazzy. He set it on the railing and extended his hand. What do you say? Chloe stared at him for a moment, then laughed. Really laughed. The kind that shook her whole body. You're ridiculous. Is that a yes? That's a yes. They danced in the darkness between the vines. No string lights or witnesses, just the two of them and the music from Daniel's phone. It wasn't smooth or practiced. Daniel stepped on her foot twice, and Chloe kept laughing every time they tried to turn. But it was theirs. This is better than last time, Chloe said. Because there's no Blake? Because I'm not running from anything. I'm just here. With you. Daniel pulled her closer. I'm glad you're here. Me too. When they got back to the reception, Mia was waiting with crossed arms. Where were you? I wanted to show you my fireflies, but Marcus said you were having grown-up time. We were talking, Daniel said. That's what grown-ups always say when they're being gross. Chloe laughed and crouched down to Mia's level. We weren't being gross. We were dancing, just the two of us. Without music? We had music, just not the band music. Mia considered this. Can I dance with you guys? Absolutely. They spent the next hour on the dance floor, Mia between them, spinning and giggling and completely oblivious to the stares from other guests. Daniel didn't care. Let them stare. This was his family, imperfect and complicated and exactly what he wanted. Later, after Mia had crashed hard on a chair near the dessert table, Marcus pulled Daniel aside. You're serious about her, he said. It wasn't a question. Yeah, I am. Good, because she looks at you like you hung the moon. I don't think Trust me. I know what I'm seeing. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. You did good, man. You took a chance, and you did good. Blake's arraignment happened on Monday morning. Daniel took the day off to go with Chloe, and they sat in the back of another depressing courtroom watching Blake plead not guilty to violating the protection order. The judge was unimpressed. She set bail high enough that Blake's lawyer visibly winced, added an ankle monitor requirement, and made it clear that any further violations would result in immediate jail time. Mr. Morrison, I'm going to be blunt, the judge said. You seem to believe you're above the rules. You're not, Ms. Bennett has made it clear she wants no contact with you. The court has ordered no contact. If you violate that order again, you will go to jail. Do you understand? Blake nodded, his expression carefully neutral, but Daniel saw the flash of anger in his eyes, the rigid set of his shoulders. Outside the courthouse, Chloe was shaking. He looked so angry, she said. Of course he did. He's losing control, and people like Blake hate that. What if the ankle monitor isn't enough? What if then he goes to jail? Chloe, the system is finally working. The judge made it clear there won't be another chance. She nodded, but didn't look convinced. Daniel wished he could promise her it was over, that Blake would stay away and they could move on with their lives. But he'd learned the hard way that promises like that were empty. All he could do was be there. The next 2 weeks were tense. Blake stayed away, the ankle monitor presumably doing its job. But Chloe was jumpy, checking over her shoulder constantly, flinching at unexpected sounds. Daniel spent most nights at her apartment or brought her to his place, unwilling to leave her alone. I feel like I'm being ridiculous, Chloe said one evening. They were at Daniel's house, Mia asleep upstairs, and Chloe had just dropped a glass after hearing a car door slam outside. You're not being ridiculous. You're processing trauma. I'm tired of processing. I want to be done. Healing isn't linear, Chloe. Some days are going to be harder than others. She started crying then. the kind of exhausted tears that came from holding everything in for too long. Daniel held her while she sobbed, not trying to fix it or make it better, just being there. When the tears finally stopped, Chloe pulled back and wiped her eyes. "I love you," she said. Daniel froze. "What?" "I love you. I know it's fast and probably crazy given everything that's happened, but it's true. You've been exactly what I needed when I didn't even know I needed it. And I love you for that." Daniel's heart was pounding. He thought about Amanda, about how quickly they'd fallen and how hard they'd crashed, about how he'd promised himself he'd never rush into anything again. But this wasn't rushing. This was 6 months of showing up, of choosing each other, of building something real in the middle of chaos. "I love you too," he said. Chloe's face crumpled. "Yeah? Yeah, I think I have since that first dance." She kissed him then, and it tasted like salt and relief and promise. The call came 3 weeks later, just as Daniel was leaving work. Jennifer Marcus, her voice tight with barely contained excitement. "Blake violated the order again, sent emails to Chloe's work account. The DA is pressing charges, and the judge revoked his bail. He's in jail pending trial." Daniel had to pull over. "He's in jail?" "As of 2 hours ago." "And Daniel? The DA thinks they can make the stalking charges stick. This isn't just a protection order violation anymore. This is criminal harassment." When Daniel told Chloe, she didn't believe him at first. "He's really in jail?" she asked. "Really in jail? For how long?" "At least until trial, and if he's convicted, possibly years." But Chloe sat down heavily on her couch. "I don't know how to feel." "That's okay. You don't have to know yet. Part of me is relieved. Part of me feels guilty for being relieved. And part of me is just empty. Like I've been carrying this weight for so long, I don't know what to do without it." Daniel sat beside her and took her hand. "You figure out who you are when you're not scared. That's what you do." Over the next few months, Chloe did exactly that. She started sleeping through the night again, stopped checking her phone every 5 minutes, began making plans more than a day in advance. The change was gradual, almost imperceptible, but Daniel noticed. He noticed when she laughed without that edge of tension, when she stopped apologizing for things that weren't her fault, when she started talking about the future like it was something she could count on. Mia noticed too. "Chloe's happier now," she said one morning at breakfast. "Yeah, she is. Because of the bad man going away." Daniel had tried to shield Mia from most of the Blake situation, but she was too smart not to pick up on things. Partly, but also because she's healing. What's healing? It's when something that was hurt gets better. Takes time, but it happens. Mia considered this while eating her cereal. "Are you healing too?" "What makes you ask that?" "Because you're happier too. You smile more. You don't look sad when you think I'm not watching." Daniel's throat tightened. "Yeah, monkey. I'm healing too." Spring turned to summer. Blake's trial was scheduled for September, and Jennifer was confident about the outcome. The evidence was overwhelming, the violations documented, the pattern clear. In July, Marcus and Tom invited them to their lake house for the weekend. It was the first real vacation Daniel had taken in years, and watching Mia and Chloe play in the water together, he felt something settle in his chest that had been restless for as long as he could remember. That evening, after Mia was asleep in the guest room, Daniel and Chloe sat on the dock with their feet in the water. "I've been thinking," Chloe said. "About?" "Moving in together. Not right now, but eventually, when things are more settled." Daniel's heart jumped. "Yeah? If you want to. I know it's a big step, and Mia should have a say, and we should probably wait until after the trial, Chloe." She stopped. "Yeah? I want that. Whenever you're ready, I want that." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I never thought I'd feel safe enough with someone to even imagine living with them again. Blake made me think I was broken, that I'd never be able to trust anyone. You're not broken. You never were. I know that now, because of you, because of Mia, because of the life we're building." She lifted her head to look at him. "You saved me, Daniel. That night at the wedding, and every day since." "You saved yourself. I just held your hand while you did it." "That's not how I remember it." "Then we'll have to agree to disagree." She kissed him, soft and sweet and full of certainty. Blake's trial lasted 3 days. Daniel sat in the courtroom every minute, Chloe's hand in his, while the prosecution laid out the evidence. The texts, the calls, the documented violations. Blake's lawyer tried to paint him as a man struggling with heartbreak, but the jury saw through it. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 18 months in prison, followed by 5 years of probation and a permanent restraining order. When the gavel came down, Chloe let out a breath she'd been holding for what felt like forever. Outside the courtroom, she turned to Daniel. "It's over," she said, like she couldn't quite believe it. "It's over. What do we do now?" "Whatever we want." They went to get ice cream. It felt absurdly normal, sitting on a bench outside the courthouse eating waffle cones while discussing whether Mia would prefer mint chip or cookie dough. But normal was exactly what they needed. That weekend, Daniel took Chloe and Mia to the planetarium. Mia was in heaven, dragging them from exhibit to exhibit, her questions about stars and planets endless. At one point, Daniel lost track of them both and found them in the Mars exhibit, Chloe listening intently while Mia explained the difference between rovers and landers. "She's so patient with her," Linda said. She'd come along for the trip, claiming she wanted to see the new exhibits, but really just wanting to watch her son be happy. "She is." "You're going to marry her, aren't you?" Daniel didn't answer right away. He watched Chloe laugh at something Mia said, watched the easy way they interacted, the genuine affection between them. "Yeah," he said finally, "I think I am." "Good. She's good for you, for both of you." "You think Mia's ready for that?" Linda looked at him like he'd asked if the sky was blue. "Daniel, that child has been planning the wedding in her head since the museum trip. She's more than ready." 3 months later, on a crisp October evening, Daniel took Chloe back to the vineyard where they'd met. He'd arranged it with the owners, claimed he wanted to see the fall colors, but really he just wanted to come full circle. They walked to the same spot where they'd danced that second time, the night Blake was arrested. The vines were heavy with grapes ready for harvest, and the air smelled like earth and coming rain. "I love it here," Chloe said. "Even with everything that happened, this place feels like ours. That's why I wanted to come back." Daniel pulled a small box from his pocket. Chloe's eyes went wide. "Daniel, let me say this before I lose my nerve." He took her hand. "A year ago, I was going through the motions. Work, Mia, sleep, repeat. I was content, but not happy. And then you asked me to dance, and everything changed." "You asked me to dance," Chloe corrected, her eyes shining. "Semantics. The point is, you reminded me what it felt like to want something more, to believe in something more. And I know we've been through hell to get here, and I know it hasn't been easy, but I can't imagine my life without you in it." He opened the box, revealing a simple ring with a small diamond. "So will you marry me? Will you be part of this messy, complicated, beautiful life we're building?" Chloe was crying, but she was also smiling wider than he'd ever seen. "Yes," she said. "Yes. Absolutely yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, and she pulled him into a kiss that felt like coming home. They told Mia that night at dinner. Daniel had expected excitement, maybe some jumping and squealing. What he got was a very serious 7.5-year-old nodding thoughtfully. "Okay," Mia said. "Good. I was starting to wonder when you'd get around to it." Chloe laughed. "You were waiting for this?" "Daddy's been looking at rings online for like 2 months. He's not as sneaky as he thinks." 2 months? Chloe looked at Daniel. "I wanted to be sure." "And are you sure?" Daniel looked at Mia, then at Chloe, at this family they'd built from broken pieces and second chances. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." The wedding was small, held at the vineyard in May. Just family and close friends, with Mia as the flower girl wearing a purple dress she'd picked out herself. Helen and Robert were there. Linda cried through the entire ceremony, and Marcus served as best man despite threatening to tell embarrassing stories in his speech. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Mia stage whispered, "Don't even think about it," which got a laugh from everyone. Daniel and Chloe wrote their own vows. Chloe promised to always listen when Mia talked about dinosaurs, and to love Daniel even when he couldn't tie a tie properly. Daniel promised to dance with her whenever she needed it, and to always show up, no matter what. When they kissed, Mia cheered loudly enough that several people jumped. The reception was everything a wedding should be. Good food, bad dancing, toasts that made people laugh and cry. At one point, Daniel found himself standing at the edge of the terrace watching Chloe dance with Mia, both of them laughing at some private joke. Marcus appeared beside him with 2 beers. "You did good, man." "We both did." Think about it, though. A year ago, you were standing in almost this exact spot, ready to leave because you were bored. Now look at you. Daniel took a sip of beer. Funny how things work out. It's not funny, it's brave. You took a chance on someone when you had every reason not to. That takes guts. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing. Marcus clinked his bottle against Daniel's. To stupid bravery. To stupid bravery. Later, when most of the guests had left and Mia was asleep in Linda's arms, Daniel and Chloe found themselves alone on the terrace. The string lights were still on, casting everything in a warm glow. "Dance with me?" Chloe asked. "Always." They swayed to music only they could hear, the same way they had that night in the vineyard when everything was still uncertain and scary. But now there was no fear. Just the 2 of them, and the life they'd chosen. "You know what I realized?" Chloe said. "What's that?" "That night you asked me to dance, really asked, that first time. I was drowning. And you threw me a lifeline. But I spent so long thinking you saved me that I forgot something important." "What did you forget?" "That I grabbed the lifeline. I chose to take your hand. I chose to leave Blake. I chose to fight for this." She pulled back to look at him. "You didn't save me, Daniel. You gave me a reason to save myself." Daniel's throat was tight. "I think we saved each other." "Yeah," Chloe said softly. "I think we did." They danced until the vineyard staff started breaking down tables, and someone finally turned off the string lights. Then they collected a sleeping Mia from Linda, thanked everyone for coming, and drove home to the house that now belonged to all 3 of them. Mia woke up just enough to insist on being carried inside, her flower crown askew and her dress wrinkled. "Best wedding ever," she mumbled into Daniel's shoulder. "I thought you said weddings were boring," Daniel said. "Not when they're ours." Daniel and Chloe got Mia into bed, still in her dress because she refused to change. They stood in her doorway for a moment, watching her sleep with Mr. Whiskers tucked under one arm. "Our kid," Chloe said quietly. "Our kid," Daniel agreed. They went to their own room, and for the first time it felt complete, not because of the marriage certificate or the rings or the vows they'd made, but because they'd chosen each other every single day, through fear and uncertainty and the messy reality of building a life together. "What are you thinking about?" Chloe asked, curled against his side in the darkness. "That night at the wedding, when you asked me to dance." "I didn't ask. You asked me." "We're really still debating this?" She laughed. "Always." "Fine. When we asked each other to dance, I remember thinking this was the most spontaneous thing I'd done in years, that it probably wouldn't lead anywhere. But what the hell?" And I'm really glad I said yes." "Me too." Chloe was quiet for a moment. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't, if you just let me figure it out on my own that night?" Daniel thought about it. "Honestly, I think you would have been fine. Maybe not right away, but eventually. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for. But I wouldn't have you, or Mia. No, you wouldn't." "Then I'm glad you said yes too." They lay in the darkness, listening to the house settle around them. Somewhere down the hall, Mia was probably dreaming about dinosaurs or stars or whatever 7.5-year-olds dreamed about. Outside, the world kept turning, indifferent to the small miracle of 3 broken people finding each other and deciding to be whole together. "Daniel?" Chloe said, her voice already heavy with sleep. "Yeah? Thank you for dancing with me." "Any time," he said. "Any time." And he meant it. Because that's what love was. Really. Not the grand gestures or perfect moments. It was showing up. It was taking someone's hand when they needed it. It was choosing each other over and over through fear and healing and all the messy, complicated beauty of being human. Daniel closed his eyes and let sleep take him, Chloe's breathing steady beside him, and thought about how a single dance could change everything. How kindness could become connection. Connection could become love. and love could become a family. It wasn't the story he'd planned, but it was better than anything he could have imagined. And as he drifted off, he thought about Mia's words from earlier, not when they're ours, and realized she'd gotten it exactly right. This was their story now, messy and imperfect and absolutely theirs. And that made all the difference.